Welcome to the Sisterhood of Sweat. I am here today with Jenn Roux. Jenn Roux is a business leader, wife, mom of a beautiful 1-year-old, and passionate fitness coach. She is a 2 times bikini pro athlete, holds several fitness and nutrition certifications, and has earned several prestigious designations in her professional career before leaving the corporate world to pursue entrepreneurship. Over the past 10 plus years, Jenn has coached thousands of women to their fitness and wellness goals. From getting on bikini competition stages to losing weight to reshaping their bodies and more. She has also built several businesses, most recently as the co-CEO of Just Lean In, a weight loss and wellness company whose mission is to help clients achieve their wellness goals and lead their happiest, healthiest lives. Empowering others to live their highest quality life and pursue their passions is her life's purpose. When she is not working, Jenn enjoys lifting weights, hiking, skiing, wine, and spending time with her family. And today we talked all about how thinking we're in control of everything, um, and learning how we're not really in control of everything and how to let go and have flow in our lives and let go of perfection and so many things. She's a new mom of a 1-year-old and used to being in the corporate leadership role, and she talks about that transition, about uh identity, like, just how you might feel like you're losing your identity, but really you're just shifting it. We talked a lot about mindset and personal development, how she achieved some pretty lofty goals at a young age, and how we can all be unstoppable in our roles, whether it is the CEO in the boardroom, the bikini athlete on the stage, or the mom that is knee deep in dirty diapers. And it was really a great time catching up with Jenn. We both competed in the same organization for many, many years. And it was just so awesome to have such an amazing conversation. I hope you guys really enjoy this. I feel like there were so many moving parts and pieces to this that just a little bit of everyone could get something from it. So without further ado, let's dive into the show with Jenn Roux. I am so excited to welcome Jenn Roux to the Sisterhood of Sweat today. Welcome.
Hey, Linda, thank you so much.
So it's been a bit since I've seen you. She's a 2-time bikini pro athlete, and you hold several fitness and nutrition certifications, and you really have recently just written a book called Unstoppable. You're a new mom. Can you tell the audience a little bit about your journey so they can get to know you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, my passion has always been in the fitness and nutrition realm ever since I was little. I always had an interest in it. And then when I started in my athletic career, if you will, I actually started as a runner. I realized quickly, and if you read the book, you'll you'll hear this story about why. But I realized quickly that one of the keys to being a successful athlete was what I fueled my body with, and thus kind of started this passion of mine. However, I didn't go down that path when I went to college. I went to school for business, and I was in business. And when I say business, not that fitness isn't a business, but I was in like operational and IT strategy at a Fortune 100 company. So, and middle of my 20s, like I really realized that like I love fitness more than I gave credit to. So, going from knowing what your passion is, but being in a very different field and getting to a place where you can actually practice and do and change lives in your passion is really what I wrote about, because I never thought I would get to this place.
Right.
I truly thought I would be in corporate for my whole career, because it's financially safe. And, so anyways, yeah. So that was I write all about my journey through and how I made it to eventually be the co-CEO of a health and wellness weight loss coaching company called Just Lean In. Um, and then, yeah, so, and I really just wrote about it because I want to inspire others to, to know that people that you see who are successful had a story, and not everyone just kind of, you know, cruised there, but there's a lot of obstacles along the way as well.
So you've basically went, you've done bikini competitions on stages and the glass slipper,
Oh yeah.
and you have coached other women, but
Yep.
now do you have one or two children?
Just one so far.
Yeah. And so that probably was, you had to figure things out, right? On the
Oh
fly.
yeah. Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. I think one of the things that I took for granted was much, how much, how we don't have control over everything like you think you do. When you're a bikini competitor, if
Right,
you're a figure, if you're in the bodybuilding space,
right.
what you are is a control freak potentially. No, I'm just kidding. But, you are somebody who's
Yeah.
very disciplined around every single facet of your life. You have to be disciplined about not just getting your workouts and nutrition are baseline, but you also need to control your sleep, your stress, your water intake, your salt intake. You need to be thinking about everything, the whole picture. It all matters if you want to do well on that stage. And what I learned as we started our journey into getting pregnant is that you could do every single thing correctly, and that's not going to determine whether you get pregnant, have a viable pregnancy, have a healthy pregnancy. Now there's a lot of things that you should be doing to keep yourself healthy and to help, but I think it was an incredible journey for me to realize that, like, both are okay, but there's like a middle ground. And I think that there are a lot of lessons that I learned from competing that I've taken into motherhood. A lot of like the habits and things like that. And I also would say that, my background in staying so disciplined and healthy, I think really helped me become a healthy, in my pregnancy, be healthy and afterwards. So yeah, it's been awesome. It's been quite the journey. And I'm loving it though. I truly did not think I would like this part of motherhood. I always wanted to be a mom, but like, because I want to be a sports mom, I want to be on the side. I want to be driving kids to practices and helping them be really great athletes, or, if they do something else, like I want that, like that's all the part that I looked forward to. And I had no idea all the joy that this part of motherhood would bring. So yeah, it's truly a blessing, and it's been an incredible and eye-opening, growth-filled journey.
Right, because you also learn that everything can't go according to schedule, and
Yes.
that you have to let go of control to be in control.
That's an amazing way to put it. 100%.
And I mean, my daughter is well, she has Parker Elizabeth, who's 2 and 2 months, and then we have Elliot Elliot Hayes, who is just now turning 8 months.
Oh, okay.
And
Wow.
so I think now she's seeing the the way it is with two,
Yeah.
and it changes you. It also kind of relaxes you from whatever you were doing with the first one.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I can see how that would be. Um,
I
but
feel like it has to be perfect. Everything has to be perfect. And I think then you learn that perfect is really going with flow.
yeah, I think that like, it's interesting because again, like coming from like a bodybuilding background where you think where everything does need to be like completely lined up, A
Yes.
plus B plus C plus D equals winning. Like you have to do all these
Yeah.
things and that's how you win. Um, and in this space, you're right. You think if you follow the books, if you read the books and follow everything like the geniuses say to do, like your child may be miserable and not your life may be miserable. Like, like my son is he never followed the same patterns, if you will, for napping. He was always ahead of the curve. And I think maybe just because he's a lot bigger. So, but I've learned to do the opposite of what you do when you're an athlete. When you're an athlete, you don't listen to your body per se. I mean, you need to listen to it as a data point, but you're not following your hunger cues. You're not following how you feel. You are executing against a
Yeah.
plan, right?
Right.
Here, what I've learned with my son is listening to him and what his little body is telling him and guiding him through what those things mean is really much more powerful, and I listen to him I've learned to have like a relaxed sense of control. We have like a loose schedule that we follow that generally works for us, but I try to you know follow his cues. Like if he's going to if he's throwing a tantrum, or if he's when they're little, when they're crying, like there's a reason for that. Now some of it is just like if he wants a knife and he can't have a knife, so but you have to help guide their little brains to like something else then, right?
Oh,
So it's
right.
it's kind of
Right.
like having things like listening to them, but having like a loose plan in the background of what you're doing, have like giving them guidance, but like being able to kind of like oscillate in between um is the best way that I can say it. Or even with when it comes to feeding, I don't necessarily follow any like guidelines. Like I know all the things that they say, so I look for certain cues. Like the other day or this past like week or so, he's been reaching for the spoon when I spoon things onto his plate, so I that tell gave me the input that he's ready to start working with a spoon again instead of just fingers. So it's things like that where I'm like I think there's like you learn to have like a loose sense of control. It's not this strict thing. I will also say though, like not that us as adults humans are the same necessarily, but we are in a sense when it comes to general population, if you are, and when I say that I mean if you're not a competitor, because in the last year and a half I've worked with non-competitors, and even before that I worked with people who were just trying to get into shape. You don't have to follow everything to a T. There's baseline things you should be doing, but there you also do have like some leeway to listen to your body. And I would say one of the things that has been really cool about the last like year and a half is like the protocols that we had at Just Lean In, or have like the Just Lean In protocols are there's like a strictness to them, but it's to allow your body to get more in tune with your hunger and satiety cues. So the strictness is more around like the types of food you're eating. And we never gave anyone a number to hit per day. And because of like the foods they were eating, and because of, that we were saying like more high fat on this day, more like carbohydrates on the another day. But because of the way that we were doing things, where you're strict on certain things, you could actually listen to your body and hear those cues. So you kind of have like a thing and kind of similar to that, where you have like these guidelines in the background, but it's allowing you to kind of listen to your body more, which I think can be really powerful, because it seems as though a lot of people who struggle with weight loss, there's a lot of reasons why. But I think a big part of it is different factors in our environment and our body that have pushed us to a point where we don't have like we aren't able to hear and understand like how our bodies function, our hunger and satiety cues anymore. So anyways, I digress, but I think that it's been really, it's been really interesting to like go from the competitor where you literally do everything that is on this plan so that you can win, to listening to your body and listening to, or in my son's case, really kind of like, listening to what he's doing, watching his development so that I can like help guide that development and show him, just love him and not just strictly make him follow a plan and follow all the things that these books say to do.
Well, I got to babysit my granddaughter and grandson on Saturday night. My daughter and her husband went on a date, which they enjoyed immensely, dinner and a movie.
Lovely.
And it was so fun. We made cookies, and
Oh,
before that though, it was so funny because Parker, her mommy had told her no TV, and she came to me and said, Grandma turned on the remote. Like she called it the moat. Like because she came to me to override mommy. And
yeah.
I was like, she's pretty smart already.
Yeah.
And it was just so funny the way she asked, and she asked again. But then on the movie night, she never had a movie night before because they've never allowed her to watch that much of anything. We watched um Tangled and Cinderella, and my husband and I were really invested in Tangled. We're really like watching it, and she says Coco now, Coco now. And I knew what that meant, and I said Coco's broken. I
Oh,
told
that's a
her,
good one.
yeah, a couple times that Coco was broken. So then we finished that movie, and she never asked for anything else when we watched Cinderella. That had her fully engaged, but she was loving, cuddling with us, loving that we were sitting watching movies with her. And I think, it's just a whole process of life. And you have to learn to control the controllables, but go with the flow. And I think that's really important, not only with your kids, but with yourself, with your plan, with your body, because I always trained like a competitor. But when I got a lot of injuries, I was kind of in a cytokine storm where I had all this cortisol, and I had to just completely switch everything, and I
Yeah,
couldn't fall back on what I did before because it wasn't working. Also,
absolutely.
menopause, so it was all that together. And
Yeah.
so I
Pregnancy is
intuitively,
like that too.
what? Oh,
Pregnancy
pregnancy.
is like that too. You
Okay.
really,
Yeah.
yeah, you have to listen to your body like
Yeah.
150,000%. And if you're a
Mhm.
trainer, if
Right.
you're a coach, like you need to slow down. If you're pregnant and you feel like you need to slow down, you should, or you
Yeah.
actually have to really listen to what your body's telling you.
Oh yeah. Listen to your body. Don't
Yeah,
be a slave driver where you're beating yourself with a whip like we do sometimes when we're competing or you're trying to lose weight. You have
yeah,
to listen. You have to really tune in. I had to
yeah.
let go of stress, and I had to really change everything. And then recently, I started being able to eat like a competitor again and eat all the meals, and it was working. So it's like, oh, we're back,
Yeah,
back on track. But I think just the whole listening to your body and being able to pivot, we pivoted during the pandemic, but sometimes you have to pivot in life because what you did at 20 isn't the same as what you should do at 30, 40, 50, and 60.
100%, because like what you do for nutrition and fitness has a lot to do with the circumstances that you're in, you know, and your body is, the body is an amazing, beautiful thing, right? Like it's so super adaptive to the situations that you're in. And so like as you get older, like you become a grandmother, right? So now you have younger kids, or, you know, if you might be taking care of older, you know, your parents, you might be taking care of like other people's, like your whole world starts to shift and change. I mean, honestly, like becoming a parent is just, you know,
A
and so like
huge
as you,
major change.
yeah, and so as you go through changes, your hormones are fluctuating and shifting, and it's because your body is designed to survive in equal, you know, in equilibrium. So if there's a lot of stuff, your body's taking in all this input, and if there's all this like stress coming in, or, you know, maybe it's not stress, maybe you had a loss and it's anxiety and grief that's coming into your life, right? As you get older, and your parents, you may be losing parents or siblings. But as your circumstances change, the places, if you move to a different place, you actually have a different environment around you. As all that changes, your body is trying to like harmonize and shift and change. So being able to adapt to that and listen to the input, that it can be really helpful. And then not, you know, stopping altogether. Like that doesn't mean like you don't, it just means you change the
You
nutrition,
shift, you
you shift
change
your
things.
training.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's like one of those things where like if you want longevity, you should really think about where am I, and even like when it comes to competing, right? Like I am just now, probably in the last like, well, I broke my back the end of April. I broke two of the transverse process, the L2 and L3 so that's those little spiny things that your muscle connective tissue connects to. Lucky for me, that's what I broke, and not anything in the spinal column. So I healed enough that I can get back to training. And between postpartum and then healing from that, I'm finally in a place where I'm training like a competitor, because in my head I want to do that again. But and I know I probably only have a few more months before we start, you know, trying to have a child, and then I have to kind of shift things that I might be doing. I'll probably still train hard until until I get that. But anyways, like having situational awareness and being able to train differently when your body's ready for it is super important. And can help you in the long run, right? Because if I was trying to train like this when I was postpartum, like I could hurt myself. Like my core wasn't ready for that yet. You know, like my organs, a lot of things inside my body were healing from from pregnancy. I'll also add that, you know, your body's macro and micronutrient requirements shift and change as your environment and your situation changes. And like postpartum is a really, like, especially the first 40 days, it's a really important time to replenish a lot of specific like micronutrients. And if you neglect that part, that's how a lot of women end up with feeling like the mom brain. I mean, obviously lack of sleep contributes to that as well, but you know, or like a lot of other nebulous symptoms that just are chalked up to being a mom and losing your body and all this stuff. Really, a lot of it has to do with not allowing your body enough time and not giving it what it needs to
Right.
to repair. It's actually, there's a term called postnatal depletion. Is that the right term? I think that's the right term. It'll come back to me, but there's a term for it. And I read a really interesting book about it from a doctor who I believe was in Australia or New Zealand, and was seeing a lot of women who are several years postpartum, right? This has a trailing effect. And there were very interesting commonalities that led him to believe that like that period of time you really should just be making sure you're getting the nutrition you needed. So for me, like I was really just focused on that. And then I went through a period of time where I was like, I'm just trying to move my body again. I actually had a C-section, so I'm like not only just recovering from from the pregnancy, but also from major abdominal surgery. So
Hmm.
I was just trying to move
Yeah.
again, then focus on, core function and so on and so forth, and you slowly kind of add some stuff back in, slowly add the volume back in, um and get to a point where you can, train really hard again and start to really make strength gains again, which feels amazing. That's my happy spot, is like, just training to a point where I can really like continuously be pushing the weight higher. And
And where you feel like you're transforming. But there is
yeah,
a fine line between transforming and pushing over the edge. And
yes,
so I think the whole listening to your body and also respecting where you're at in life. Like,
yeah,
I was going through menopause, I was ripping all the muscles from the pelvis and really tuning in. Why is that happening?
yeah,
Discovering a solution, healing, all that took so much, and mindset. I mean, just so much work and time. And
yeah,
then I healed, and then I competed, right? And then
yeah,
I won. I just got up one more time. I mean, I think it is always just getting up one more time. And
yeah,
I think when we learn to listen to our bodies, that you're becoming a champion right there, because they speak loudly, they speak with injuries and weight gain and hormonal, shifts. And um, what I learned was that I was worthy just as I am. Like
amen, yeah,
I had other parts to myself other than my body, that I was not just my body.
yeah,
And I started working on other moving parts and pieces and surrendering to where I was. And I think that it was a whole evolution of growth. And then uh, it translated into everything else when I moved forward. I moved forward in a different way, which you probably will do too, since you broke your back.
yeah, definitely. I think one of the things that's absolutely incredible, I mean, that was just really powerful in general. But one thing that I think is really important to call out, because I see people, or I hear this a lot, where like people just want to, like, they have this goal in mind and they want this specific body. And I think that a lot of people think that there's like finite, like, it's, you get to this point and then you're like in that point, or there's like an age boundary around something, or there's a time boundary, but there, all of those things are kind of superficial. And one of the things that you just said was really powerful. You listened to your body, you learned and educated yourself on how to nurture your body through menopause so that you didn't hurt yourself, and that you healed and you got through. And on the other side of that, your body was ready, and that was your time. So, I think that like your body is, are there's not just time limitations are artificial, and they're things that we create. And if you can take yourself back and say, look at a bigger picture,
Right.
I think people can be much more successful and feel a lot more hope, and
Not
then
feel like you have a
accomplishing
short little window to make it.
100%.
Yeah,
Like, I do plan on competing again. So I'm going to say it out loud, but in
that's
my
the best
mind,
way.
I want a third pro card, because who can say they have who can say they have two pro cards? I've gotten two
I'm just happy to
professional
say I
bikini.
have one pro card at
Yeah,
60.
congratulations. That's incredible. And so I like in to me right now, I'm an all natural athlete. I've only competed in all natural federations. I'm kind of small relative to what the industry is right now. And I see athletes, I see the bikini pros in IFBB, and I love the look. I love the sport. I follow it the same way I follow football. And I would love to accomplish that. But now is not the right time for me. So
Yeah,
right now I prepare my
but it
body
can be a
because
dream for later.
Yeah. You know
right?
what? My kids are only my I say kids plural because my dream right now that the next thing is, in the fall, my husband and I are gonna start trying to have, trying for number two. And like my goal right now is to build a beautiful family. I want to, my husband and I have goals together of what we want to accomplish in our life as a family unit. I want to raise amazing little humans. I want them to know that they are loved. I want them to, be able to follow their passions and provide that for them. So, that is the period I'm in right now.
Mhm.
However,
Right.
there's no reason I can't build towards that. So like, knowing that I have that on the horizon, or like how wanting that on the horizon, like I can train like a competitor now while I am able-bodied, and then I'm going to go into a season of pregnancy, and I'm going to have, a 10 months where I'm carrying a child, having a child, and then I'm going to be in a postpartum. But like through that, I'm going to just take care of myself, and I'm not going to worry about anything related to the stage, because that won't be the period of time that I'm in. And even for a
Because you're
while, well,
building a baby instead of the body.
exactly, which is honestly like, I mean, I look at my child and I'm sure this only gets even better as you get older, like, and you see your children grow up. But like every time I see this little human, I am just in awe that he grew inside of my body.
Oh
You
yeah.
know,
Uh-huh.
it's just, I think I've had an opposite, um, uh, I've had an opposite experience from a lot of bikini competitors, but maybe a similar one to you, where like I learned to truly love this vessel that my soul lives in because of competing, because I saw it for what it was. Like I beat my body. You beat your body up, right?
Oh
And that
yeah.
and that's for
Yes.
any professional athlete, right? Like
Right.
that's
Yeah.
not just this. Any professional athlete, like you're pushing your body to absolute limits, right? And so
Hmm.
to continuously do that and see my body go through these transformations over and over. I did 20 shows to watch I just felt so grateful that my body did that for me and accomplished what it did. And so like I already had that feeling, but like having a child is that times a million where you're like,
Right.
it's,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a way longer period of time where
Hmm.
you're just so
You get to
restricted.
watch them do amazing things and
Yeah.
celebrate that. When you're my age, you're like, oh my gosh, all three of my children are so creative and so gifted. And now I have grandchildren and they're so amazing. So that is something that requires a lot of your time to complete,
Yeah.
to birth, and to get them to where they're at. And it, to me, is worth more than any award on stage or any trophy
Yes.
that I
Yes.
could have received.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm seeing that. And that's why, in my head, I'm like, it's one of those things where I'm like, that'll be a great goal at some point when they don't need me as much. But right now, he needs me full time. And the next baby that we will conceive is going to need my body and me for a long so in competing it takes up a lot of your time and resources, so that's why it's I'm okay with it being something down the road. I will say I'm extremely passionate about bringing the message out to other women that no matter whether you're a competitor or you're not, you should be focused on strength training, building muscle,
Oh, right.
because
Yeah.
so even though in my mind I'm like, okay, I'm going to compete again one day. The reality that I say is like, even that's what keeps me motivated because I love that sport. But underlying that, I'm like, even if I never do again, this that I'm doing right now is really building this
Hmm.
home for my body to be really healthy in the long run for a longer period of time. Like that's
Longevity is the name of everything. Like I literally didn't know if I was going to be able to ever compete again. My body wasn't responding. I ripped everything from the pelvis over like 1, 2, 3 injuries
Oh,
over time.
oh
And
my gosh.
I gained 35 pounds during that because I had to have all surgeries.
Oh my
And like,
gosh.
I was like not seeing that, but I wanted to get up so bad. And I had to embrace the suck of it. Like, just stop comparing myself to my old self,
Yeah.
and not comparing myself to anyone else, and knowing that getting up was going to be messy because I wasn't going to be like the old me, that, I didn't have any injuries. And so just really seeing, like, I didn't know if I was going to be able to do it again, but I never
Yeah.
said I wasn't. I never said I'm retired. I never said I'm not doing this again.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I did 75 hard, and then all of a sudden I realized I was making my way back. My pelvis wasn't it, my groin wasn't keeping me up at night, my hamstring wasn't hurting. I wasn't in like pain all the time anymore.
Yeah.
Then I don't know, I got up doing a cover shoot. That got me up. First it was billboards, then it was a cover shoot. Then it was, I think I trained for this cover shoot. I think I could compete in 4 weeks, even though I didn't train like a competitor. I went and I did it. And then I went two more times, and I don't know. It's just like all of a sudden you're back and you're like, wow, I didn't realize
Yeah.
I was going to do this again at 60. I didn't know if I was. And
But okay, but so what's amazing about that though, right? Is like it's the getting up. It's just what you said in the beginning of this. It's like getting up one more time, but like just over and over, just getting up one more time and like starting off with something like 75 hard. Anyone can do that. I mean,
right.
not everyone can do. I mean,
And
not
it's
everyone
hard because you're doing
has the
45
discipline
minutes
to,
in and out, but
yeah,
you can do it.
but
You
it's
just
you
feel
know,
like,
it's
oh God, out and inside today.
yeah, and it's not like I mean and I more so mean like, you don't have to pay like you do for a competitor, right? Like you can decide to start 75 hard and just do it, right? But it's like I think the thread that I would say I would say that that is a commonality that I have always felt like postpartum was so difficult coming from like a former competitor and someone who pushes yourself, because in a similar vein it was like I had to stop comparing what I was doing, not even just to how I looked, because I was okay with that. I feel like,
Yeah,
out in society, like
right,
pregnancy is beautiful now. Your
right,
postpartum, there's even a lot. I felt like there was a good amount of support for like your postpartum body with how it looks. What I had a huge struggle with was how I felt, because I get a lot out of lifting, how I feel mentally, being able to push myself harder and feeling strong. And I just felt weak. I could barely do
right.
basic
That's the
things when I
hardest
first
part.
started,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
so showing up for workouts that just felt bad,
Right.
just showing up for those earlier workouts with things that I was like, that's a warm up, right? But that's a
Oh,
workout
right. Yeah,
when you're
because in
that
your
stage.
brain, you're like, I should be doing this, but I'm doing that, and that's kicking my butt.
Yeah, 100%, right? You're like, okay, so even just breath work was hard at the beginning. So yeah, I think that like, but I kept coming back. I kept getting up. I kept going and listening to my body, and then getting to a point, all of a sudden I'm here. I'll say also another thing that I don't know if you found this to be true, but it's kind of interesting in the recovery process is like the I'm going to call it interesting guidance that like the medical community seems to give you. I had an amazing orthopedic surgeon, but I had to really articulate to him, like, I'm not like movement is I critical, and I want to get back to movement, and I want to specifically get back to my training level.
Yes.
So, so like he let me go back to start PT at
Right.
4 weeks instead of 6 weeks, which is
Yeah.
the normal protocol. And they usually tell you just not to move. But, so I think that was like, being able to understand how important movement is,
Yeah.
um, and but also not trust, like I'm a personal trainer, like a
Yeah.
certified personal trainer.
Now,
I've got a
was
lot.
this when you broke your back or after you had the baby?
Yeah, well, I'd say this feels applicable to both, but more so like when I broke my back, like they were
Right.
like, "Oh, don't move for 6 weeks," and I
Oh,
was
a
like, "That's
hundred
not going to work for
percent.
me."
Like, I
The
mean, the
atrophy is not
physical
worth it.
therapist had that talk with me and sat me down after my third injury.
Yeah.
Maybe you should hang up your tennis shoes. Like, maybe you need to call it a day on this fitness competing thing, Um, I literally just decided I had Stacy Vinegro help me with the routine. I had the perfect music. I didn't know it was going to be perfect for the time. Like, it's so perfect. Like, it was just so perfect. And I just wanted her to take out all the elements that were of risk, like where I thought I might hurt myself. Cause I mean, I did have to have my hamstring reattached. And
Oh,
just, yes.
oh.
And sorry for anyone listening, that's ouchy. But yeah, she literally put this routine together, and so funny because when I look back, I'm like, oh, I did all of the things that I actually do best in that routine anyway. And
Amazing.
I just took a couple of things out, and I
Yeah.
felt so much better than I did before I had that. Like, I felt stronger than I did before when I had my injury. Like, um, I felt great. Like, I felt great on the stage. I had carbs throughout. I never cut my carbs, and I have never done a routine fully on carbs. So I was like, oh, this is great. And
Yeah, you must have felt amazing.
yeah, and felt strong and
Yeah.
all the things. But I'm just saying, in the community, the doctor that gave me the surgery gave it to me because he knew I wasn't going to be satisfied
Yeah.
if I couldn't go back and do what I wanted to do and run and all the things. But the physical therapist was having the talk kind of like, well, I had to learn to walk, I had to do all these things all over again. And she just made it sound like, it's
So,
curtains for you.
yeah, and the thing that I've come to realize is that
You decide that. They don't.
yeah, and then there are, maybe you should listen with caution to some of but then go to somebody who has the ability to understand your limitations and work around them, because like that physical therapist probably had him or her or own limiting beliefs that was telling you that you had to stop.
Right.
And whereas like there are people out there who are capable of saying, no, you can keep going. Here's how to do it safely, like Stacy did for you, and I feel like I'm a little bit in that space too, actually. I
Right.
forgot about this, but my one of the things that my physical therapist said to me was, the because of your back, I would highly recommend you avoid um loaded squats and deadlifts. He's like, if I could make it so that no one ever deadlift ever again in their life, I would do that because it's so bad for your back. And I was like, well, I can avoid it for now. I'm not sure I'll avoid them forever, but
Mhm.
but the reality is,
If you do
for
it correctly, I wouldn't think that it was the worst thing you could do
yeah.
if you had
But
good
you know what?
form.
There's plenty of other things that I can do. Like there's plenty of other ways to work those muscles.
Well, that's the
You know,
thing.
and there's
Yes, I'm
different
not
ways
saying
to,
anything against the doctor's advice. I do know deadlifts have to be done properly. And if you have a bad back, you probably want to eliminate them. But
yeah,
what you said, figure out how you can move forward. Stop
yeah.
focusing on what you can't do anymore. And how can you work around it? Those are the things.
Yeah, and like, I think to the point that you were making about deadlifts, I'll say another point on that. If deadlifts were a part of what I needed to do to be successful 100%, then I would figure out a way to make sure my form was perfect every single time. I would do, and he did
Right.
tell me some modifications
But there's other
that
ways to work your hamstrings without that.
100%, my hams, my quads, and my glutes are going to get, you know, are going to be absolutely phenomenal by doing other things, and,
Right.
and right now I'm working with a coach who I do some goblet squatting, but nothing, pushing down on my back. And I'm definitely making progress. I'm making
Yeah, I
so
have
much
a lot of
progress.
ladies I have to train that way with no compression of the spine because they have,
Yeah.
bulging and herniated discs. And so we don't do any kind of compression, nothing overhead, nothing sitting on their back.
Yeah. So it's like, so I think the thing is like, you have to really think about like, it's good to listen to the professionals and say, and listen to what they're telling you, and then put it through a filter of how important is this to me? If I really wanted to do
Right.
a deadlift again, you know, I could go out and probably figure out a way to do it. It's just like if your physical therapist was saying, "Oh, you should hang up your heels and not do this fitness competition again." But that was really important to you. So instead of that, you said, "Well, how can I do this safely?" Right? So you
Right.
kind of
How
have
can
to,
I move forward and do this safely? Because I just felt, I don't know, I just felt the need to do it and I
yeah.
wanted to do it. And I was so pumped the first like cartwheel, then the round off, and then into the 4 point explosion. Like I was so pumped. I can't, I felt like I'm back, I'm back, I'm back,
I love that. Oh, you're
And
making me miss it so much. I mean,
uh
I don't do fitness routines.
well,
I'm
I
not that
know, but
coordinated,
it's
but yeah.
still, it's the first whatever. And the doctor, I went to him to, I wanted him to give me an MRI to make sure everything was healed before I did any of that. But he tested me in the office. And so, I mean, I pretty much got the go ahead. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, I was a little afraid. So I tested it slowly. And then, hard to believe, but 3 months later, I have my pro card after just being afraid to get my feet over my head, and then going to a full routine. I
So
felt
amazing.
very blessed. I felt blessed.
That is what a blessing.
Yeah.
What a blessing.
Yeah.
And
So, yeah.
it's but it's because of so many things that you did the right way, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you took care of yourself. Um, I'm sure your nutrition was really, really sound, and you gave yourself like I'm sure you supplemented really in a way that really helped your body. And
Oh, it was all about the supplementation. I mean, that was a huge part.
yeah.
And the rest and staying away from stress.
Yes.
Um,
Oh yeah.
all of it, sleep, making sure I was getting plenty of sleep. I was really, really rigid about that. And I think if you give the body what it needs, it can heal. And I feel like God restored my body. And so, I mean, like that, I think you can be unstoppable, like your book says. How can people be unstoppable? What are your tips for them today? If somebody out there is feeling like they've gained 50 pounds and they've lost themselves, or they broke their leg in a skiing accident, or their husband left them, whatever, what are some solutions and some tools to being unstoppable?
I think that you need to know that there's seasons in life, and whatever you're experiencing, any of those things, if that you're going through right now, and I've broken my leg, I broke my back. I actually threw my calf out. I've gone through pregnancy where I've gained 35 pounds and lost it. Um, I competed for 10 years, and I didn't get my first pro card until, I don't know, 6 years in or so. Um, you
They
know,
didn't give them when I was winning and I was younger. There was no such thing as a pro card.
oh, oh, interesting. Oh my gosh. That's funny because I
Yeah.
started, I mean,
You were just the champion.
yeah, that's fair. Well, hey, that's something too, right?
But the
But
thing is, people would keep coming back then
yeah,
and keep if they could keep winning. So that's
yeah,
why I think it's important to have a pro card so that somebody new can win.
yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. I think there's a lot of value in it, but like if you want to be unstoppable, you have to just keep going, and you have to know that what you're going through right now is a season, unless you make it be the rest of your life. So you have the power to change your circumstances, and it all starts in your mind and your coming you deciding that that's what you want to do. I think the next thing after you decide that that's what you want is really then taking a look at like your circumstances. I think that it's hugely important to say, well, then like, how do I get from broken leg to the stage? Okay. How do I get from divorced to happily married, if that's what you want again? Or, how do I get from A to B, and what is in between? And be okay with it being messy, but don't be okay with giving up. Don't be okay
That's
with
the
giving up.
thing. Don't give up. Don't give
Yeah.
up. If you want to do something, you just got to find a way over, around, and through it.
Yeah, 100%. And like, I'll tell you, I'm going through an interesting transition in my life right now where I've always had a big career. I was in corporate. I worked for Fortune 100, I in various different capacities, leadership roles. And I have always coached on the side. And I've been a mom for 18 months, and we just decided that I stepped down as the co-CEO of Just Lean In. And I I still have some clients on the side, but I'm generally focusing on being a mom first. And I have some other like projects that are in the works, but there's no timeline, which is different for me, right? So I'm going through this like my business coach hit the nail on the head, this cocoon phase, and being okay with not having all these strict deadlines and being really constructive with my time has been very hard for me. Like, because it gives me time to think about stuff that I probably didn't want to address. But being in this little cocoon and letting myself like think through certain things and deciding what's next, really understanding like what is the next step in my career, I think is really powerful and really important. Um, so I think like if you're going through change, like know that it's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to feel messy. You're going to cry. Probably. It's okay. It's okay. Go through that stuff, but don't let that stuff be a stopping point. Just don't let it stop you. Just keep moving, getting up every day. Um, Even though I'm really focusing in on things at home, like I said, I do have other projects, but I've established a kind of like a little bit of a loose routine. You know, my son is my number one priority, his growth and safety and feeling loved and being able to play and all that is it. But we get up every day and there's certain things that I'm trying to teach him. And so we go do that. I get to the gym 5 days a week minimum. I get out for my walks. And so I've established kind of a routine and of how to get that stuff in. Also, most importantly, is I have certain podcasts and books that I'm listening to. So I'm filling my time with things that are really positive to keep me, on in that really strong, unstoppable mind space, because even now, like, even though I don't have this huge career goals, all these big things that I'm used to striving for, I am trying to be the best mom possible. And it's not all like cupcakes and roses and bonbons. It's like a lot of mental energy to get a toddler to do what you want them to do basic things like feed them and things like that, to change their diaper. Like, like I know you want to keep playing, but sitting in a poop diaper is really uncomfortable, right? Like, don't. And then like trying to get them up to the changing table when they're kicking and screaming because they want to keep playing instead of but anyways, I think the thing is, feeding your mind, and then also making sure you're feeding your body and soul, I think are just super important to help no
I
matter
had to
what.
change a poopy diaper and I'd forgotten what that's like. Okay. I'm out of practice.
I
Oh,
can't
she
wait to
would
forget.
not hold still for anything. And I said to him, well, I got the diaper on, but I don't know how good I did. She was wiggling and jumping and so funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I'm like, honey, please stay still. There's no way you feel good with this diaper on. Like,
funny. Oh
but
my gosh, so fun. But it's just all the stages of life. And my dad used to say it's an adjustment from birth to the grave. Those that adjust do well. And
Yeah.
so I think every stage of life is an adjustment. You know,
Yeah.
when we retire at some point, it'll be an adjustment. When I decide to go on the other part of my plan, I have a plan, I'm in plan A, but when I'm ready for plan B, it'll be completely different.
Yeah.
And it's just adjusting to each phase and seeing that there's pluses and minuses to all.
Yeah. I love that. And I think like, finding the joy in each phase, like, so, okay, so postpartum, it was terrible every single time I tried to do anything that was even remotely related to working out. But my gosh, those tiny newborn snuggles are absolutely amazing. I can't wait for them again. The sleepless nights are not fun, but like, having this little tiny human who looks at you with the most loving, unconditional look in their eyes. I mean, there's just nothing that compares to like that feeling. Looking at this tiny little human that just came out of your body that you just made in your body, well, God made in your body, like just amazing. So, yeah, you're right. I think that, and I think that if you can find the joy in every single phase, that's also important because that'll also help you keep getting up. It will help
Right,
you keep getting
right.
up every single time that you feel knocked down. Um, and it will help you keep going,
And I
so that
think,
you can be unstoppable.
I wouldn't have, I mean, my mission, I wouldn't have started the Sisterhood of Sweat. I wouldn't have, I wouldn't be doing all the things I'm doing if it wasn't for the downtime that I had to take away from, competing. And I mean, seriously, when was I going to do all that? It really
Yeah.
was, in a way, a blessing in disguise. And also, it made me realize, and I think anyone out there listening, that there are so many parts of you. There's so many pieces to everything that makes you you. Like, you're a complete package. You're not just one thing. You're not just your brain. You're not just your body. You're not just your personality. You're not just the things you do. I think when you really recognize that you're so much more, um, it's empowering,
Yeah. Oh, that gave me the chills. I agree wholeheartedly. And it's
right?
okay to be like, it's okay for one piece of you to be the thing that you're focused on or like have like more prevalence at some point, but that's not you. And I think that why I love that even more is because I think that I always had a lot of my self-worth wrapped up in my job. And it made it challenging
It's
to
an
make the
identity. It's you can't help it.
yeah, like telling people, because I went to business school, so like my network is all people who have like really big,
Right.
important jobs, and so
Sure.
like telling people that I was that I'm a director at a Fortune 100 company, like that's a
Felt good. I mean,
like feels good to say that, or like saying, oh, I'm the
yeah,
co-CEO of a
right.
startup. And now and down to be like, oh, well, I'm a stay-at-home mom, but it's not, it doesn't
No.
matter. Like, because, but the thing that I've had to like really say, like wrap my head around is like, I am not that. Like, that doesn't make me me. Like, what makes me me is so much deeper and it's so much more all-encompassing. And so you can take a lot of you can take from a lot of those. I was very competitive and flexed into my
Mhm.
masculine, I'd
Sure.
say.
Yeah.
When I was in those roles, and I love that part of me,
Yeah.
but I've been truly
Joining in the
surprised.
feminine.
Yeah, and I've been really surprised by my ability to be a mother. Like, I that sounds weird when I say it out loud, but like the joy of the feminine part of me has been really amazing to discover. Like I
Hmm.
didn't think I had this in me. I really truly didn't
Because
think
you
I
were
would.
too busy being all those things. But like what you said
Yeah.
about, you know, like we like having the title, the prestige, we did this. But really, in reality, you could do all those things all over again because it's what was within you that took you to those spaces and places. And
Yes.
it's not who you are. You're not just a title of some sort. And nobody really cares about that anyway. Like, you tell someone you got your pro card, like, what's a pro card? What does that
Yeah.
get? What does that get you? Is their question.
Yeah.
Where, what do you get out of that? Um, and they don't even really, most people don't even know what it is. And
Yeah.
um, it's like you can get to these big accolades in your life and they're accolades, but like it is important to achieve and it does feel good
Yes.
to hit your milestones, but nobody really cares about that. They really
Yeah.
don't.
It's like,
They care about, are you listening to them? Are you hearing them? Are you seeing them? Like they don't care about all the titles and the whistles and all of that like you think they do.
100%. I think the content of your character is so much more important than the title that you carry.
Right.
Um, and I think that it's a hard thing to wrap your head around because like there is so much glorification of that like in our culture.
Yeah.
Um, but I think if you put yourself in the right circles, it doesn't like it truly doesn't matter. It's like it's all the things that you said, like how are you making other people feel?
It's
How
about
are you
that. That's, you hit the nail on the head. It's really about how are you making other people feel?
Yeah, definitely. So,
Yeah,
and I mean, like, you know, I will I would never say like don't try to accomplish something because
of
the
course
things that
not.
you learn, like the content of your character, like the things that you have inside of you, there's so much of that builds that you learn through
Do each thing you
these
accomplish.
accomplishments,
Yeah.
so it's really awesome to strive, but but that's not, like you said earlier, that's not all. You're not one dimensional. It's not all you are. We're there's so many
There's so much
facets.
more than that, actually. And really,
Yeah.
all those accomplishments have to happen up here first. I mean, it's like you decide, and in the getting up and the deciding not to give up, you made another decision. And so it's really, to me, it's all those accomplishments started with a decision. Um, and you just kept working towards it and like get up one more time then if you missed it.
Yeah.
Don't give up, outlast everybody.
Yeah. 100%.
I mean,
Yeah.
I just think like it's great to accomplish, but it's not all that you are. Like you can get addicted to achievement.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like at some point, um, you know, when you're if you're like on this constant cycle of achievement, and you're in this constant state of busy and you never let yourself like,
Recognize what you just did.
yeah, I think that can be
Right.
really like I don't want to, well, I guess I'll say it because I started to. I think it can be really toxic because you are probably not allowing yourself to address things that you need to, like,
Right.
um, there's probably stuff that you're,
Rest and recognize.
yeah,
Right.
and I think it can I think it can really lead to burnout. Now, that's not to say that that's the case for everyone. Like if you're a professional athlete, like that's your job, so I'm sure you have some downtime, right? But I guess just to say that, like, I think don't be so busy all the time. Don't be striving 100, like 365 all your life. Like take some time to come down from it.
Rest, reflect,
Yeah, even if
recognize, celebrate yourself, celebrate what you just did, and recognize your accomplishments.
100%. And even if it's not like, I'm not saying you need to like take a sabbatical or something, although if you can do that, like I feel like I'm on sabbatical. Raising a child is a lot of work, but like I feel like I'm taking a little bit of a step back from, the level of busy I was at, which by the way was really unhealthy because I'm the sole caretaker of my child. So it was me at home. And then when he was napping, doing work, and then when he goes back to sleep, then I was working 10 to 2, like 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. all the time. And I think I broke my back because I literally was so tired that I fell. I wasn't doing anything cool. I fell,
Yeah, it
I,
makes complete sense to me.
yeah. So like, but,
Mhm.
so for me, like we're in a
You were
position where,
breaking your back and then
yeah,
you
I'm like,
broke your back.
yeah, like that's good input that you should probably take a step back. But I think there is like, if you're not in a position where like, say you are going that hard and that's the position you're in and you don't have the opportunity to kind of like step, completely step away. Like I think
You got to
reach
build those little spaces into your
you
time.
gotta yeah you gotta recalibrate and say
Hmm.
what am I doing that I can peel back from so
Yep.
that I can build in some like downtime, and I
Hmm.
always kind of poo-pooed that. I was like, these journalers are like, they're all just like hippy dippy, like
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Yeah,
and
I know.
now
I hear what you're saying.
And now I'm like, no, my gosh, like you don't have to sit down and have this crazy meditation unless you want to, but you do need to make time for yourself to reflect. And even if it's just a little bit in and I've always had a morning gratitude practice where I write down 3 things I'm grateful for, 3 things I'm excited about, which in my very in periods of time where I was doing things that were really, really hard on the daily basis, on a weekly basis, like, going into boardrooms and presenting stuff and knowing that I'm going to get grilled and stuff, take, I would use that practice to say, I'm grateful for these opportunities. I'm excited about the opportunity to sit in front of our president and share what we're working on and ask for more resources or whatever it was, like I would use that for like to be a combatant to the anxiety that I had for anything that was coming up. And it really brought so much, it shifted my mind. So I think it's really important to have time that you dedicate to rest and reflect and just put everything aside. And if you can take more time, and you're in a space that you need it, like you definitely should take a little bit of time. Like you took time away from the stage. Um,
It was,
there
I
can be,
mean, I'm glad because I was looking back. I thought I wasn't going to meet anyone cool. I thought I could never live my life as a champion now. And I forget, but there was all these thoughts going through my mind when I was like wheeling around on a hot pink scooter with it was like just like, oh my gosh. And it's so far from the truth. I met everyone I ever probably almost wanted to meet. I like, my gym went up and we expanded and during a pandemic and like just so many like cool things, the podcast really took off and, writing, just all the things and then competing again. And so I think sometimes you're going to have that all is lost moment. The world is over. You feel like the world is over. It feels like the bottom of the pit.
yeah,
But I promise you that if you get back up, you'll be able to climb out and find all kinds of new sides to yourself that you never knew existed. Oh, and I
yeah.
started speaking on stage. I forgot about that.
Oh yeah. And you're an amazing speaker. I
Oh, thank you.
heard some clips. I was like, wow, it's amazing.
Thanks. So, I mean, it's just kind of amazing what all you are. And I always think sometimes, like, I think your setbacks, they really actually promote you to new levels.
Yes.
And so when you've had a setback, just realize it's a boomerang. Like you're gonna go to new levels, new heights, and do the work. Because I really think a lot of our outward things that happen are all about the inner work that we've done.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I think
Hmm.
the times that like the times that I have really excelled, I felt like I was stalled. I think I talk about this in my chapter a little bit, but I felt like I was stalled for a little while, like in my career, both my fitness career and my business career. And the thing that changed that really fundamentally pushed me forward was doing inner work. And for me, that looked like, I think it
Mm-hmm.
looks different for a
Right.
lot of people, but for me, it was like, I listened to a lot of like books in like I don't know if I'm not even sure what the name of the genre is. Like, is it like self-help? I listened to actually Bethany Frankel's book, A Place of Yes, was
Oh
the
yeah, I
first
love her. The
book in,
Audible books, but I mean, it is kind of like self-improvement.
yeah. So I started listening to a lot of that. And then like, putting the positive into my mind was what really started to change everything. That, and then that gratitude practice. But those things just fundamentally shifted everything. And, competing gave me something like gave me this like alter ego that I brought so many things that I learned there into my business career that
Mhm.
really helped me
It
succeed,
builds your confidence.
100%. And
Because you're disciplining yourself and you're learning how to do things that are hard. And
yeah,
so it does translate into everything else that you do.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, it was that first show that I did, really helped me get over this crazy stage fright that I had where I couldn't even talk in meetings without turning red, which is
I used
not,
to not, I breathe like I've been running the track
yeah,
when I had to talk in a meeting, sound like I've been, running or something.
yeah,
Heartbeat out of your chest.
yeah.
Right.
Oof. But that personal development, that self-help, personal
Oh,
development,
that's it. That was personal development. That's what we were
yeah,
looking for.
that is like, it's so powerful. I mean, that's just incredible. That, I mean, that really helped. That's really what started me on the trajectory. That really is what started me from like, in my mid 20s when I first started competing, but also like, I don't know, it stopped. I was just, I don't want to say I was lost, but I was in this like career that I didn't love. I started to move in my career a little bit, but I was kind of stuck at a certain level at the company that I was at. And I don't know, I was partying a lot in my early 20s and stuff. And it all just shifted my mind so that I could start doing really well competing. And then I started doing really well in in my career. And yeah, the rest is
It's that
history.
growth mindset versus the scarcity mindset.
Yeah.
So many things that we learned on the Savage team with Kathy Savage.
Yeah.
Uh, there was so many great things, just learning the law of abundance versus the, law of scarcity, like the mindset of scarcity, that there's plenty for everyone. And just not the game of comparison, comparing yourself to others. Just learning that a growth mindset is expansive and like a scarcity mindset is more contractive. And learning how to decipher when you're having what, either scarcity or a growth mindset
Yeah.
is game changing. And that's just the beginning of the journey.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so much. This has been so good today. I mean, her son, we were worried that he might have some issues with his molars, and so we were ready to end at any moment, but we got a great podcast for you guys today. And Jenn wrote this book, Unstoppable. What do you think makes you unstoppable?
I think well, there's a lot of things, but I think the biggest thing is my my drive, my and my I think hope also, and having hope in what's to come. And
Hope is everything.
yeah,
Yeah.
and um having it I've always had a big vision. And the vision always, I think there's like some shape shifting that is always done, but knowing that whatever I set my mind to is possible if I keep getting up, if I have hope in that, and I truly, you know, keep moving forward. I will say one more thing. One of the things that I talked about at the end of my book, and I didn't talk about this at all throughout this, but my brother passed away when I was 16 and he was 19. About 22, 23 years ago. We just had like the anniversary. Um, but one of the things that he always used to say was he would quote, oh gosh, why am I blanking? Roosevelt's wife, Eleanor Roosevelt. Thank you. I said thank you as if you told me. I thought of it. But yeah, Eleanor Roosevelt's wife, and said the future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams.
I
And
love that.
he always said that, and something hit me maybe a year or so after he like had passed, somewhere in that like period where I realized he didn't have the opportunity ever again to go
Mm,
after any of his dreams. And you don't know how long you have on this earth. So
mhm,
you owe it to yourself to believe in your dreams and to go
mhm.
after them. Don't wait till retirement to
Right.
start living your life. Go after the things that you want to do and do them now. Obviously it's not going to be easy and there's going to be a lot of obstacles in your way, but just know that you can have those things and you deserve those things, and you should go after those things right now, every single day. Just keep getting up and going after those things that set your soul on fire.
Oh my gosh, that was such a great end to like a beautiful podcast. I think that needs to be the beginning clip of the show. Because what you said in the last minute really is everything. Um, like seizing the day, and we don't know like how long we have, and making the most of every moment, not waiting until you're 60, and then you have something wrong with your heart and you can't do all the things that you wanted to do, or you pass away, God forbid, and you didn't do the things, and spent your whole life working. And I think, like the Bible says, without vision, my people perish. And so I think it's really key to have a vision and be unafraid and unapologetic about following that vision and your purpose, and your dreams. So with that being said, I want to thank you for coming on the show and just being so I keep trying to think of the word, open and vulnerable, and just talking about motherhood and real things. And just, I think, just going with the flow today, even though we didn't know if your son was going to have problems with his molars. And so I know everybody listening got a lot out of it, because we're really talking about what everybody faces at some point in their life. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
And thanks everybody for listening to this episode of the Sisterhood of Sweat. Jenn, where can they get your book and reach you on social media?
You can find my book on Amazon. It's Unstoppable Volume 2. And I hang out more on Instagram. Don't be alarmed, I haven't posted in a while. I'm taking a brief hiatus to be in real life as much as possible, although you can see I do post in my stories. But it's at Jenn.Roux_. And I'm also on Facebook, Jenn with 2 N's, Roux. And I do respond to messages over there too. So
Let her know how much you like her book. Follow her on Instagram, and please leave a review so that we can attract more listeners and great guests to the Sisterhood of Sweat. And as always, you guys, keep on keeping on.